Good morning, Rons. We appreciate the anticipation for this episode. I know many people have been texting us all week. Wait, when's the after the Monday Night Football episode going to come out? When is the preview for the Rams game going to come out? Hey, thank you for your patience. Here it is. Enjoy. Look at it.
Uptown people like, yeah, yeah, yeah. People up in Britain like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Mid-city folks like, yeah, yeah, yeah. People downtown, man, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where you at, Hoodats? What a win. Has it worn off yet? I know this is coming out late to y'all Friday, but what a win. It took so many years to get over that week one hump, and you knew it wouldn't come easy. But, man, I didn't know it was going to be that difficult. We're going to break all that down for you and preview this upcoming Rams matchup, the vengeance game, the rematch game. This one's been circled on the calendar for so long. We've got it all for you tonight, and we apologize for coming out late to y'all. We know that y'all are just thirsty, hungry, just starving for this Pro Saints talk, and we're here to give it to y'all tonight. Let's break it all down. Jorge, how we living, baby?
Living lavish, and Ron's out there to all of our fans. One, thank you for all the love you're showing us in the Dome. Our numbers really aren't that great. I mean, they're solid numbers. But when people are in the Dome, we're like, man, I love your podcast. I love your podcast. Y'all are doing great. That means a lot. It makes like, okay, people are really listening. So, guys, we appreciate that. And, Ron, what a week one. This is only week one. This was as exciting as that Redskins game was 2 years ago. And just to have this roller coaster and just to be on this wave of adrenaline in just week one, that was too much. It was crazy. I loved every minute of it. Even the drama, the touchdown to Kenny Stills. It was great. Jansen, how you loving it?
Loving it, baby. We finally got some meat and potatoes to talk about. Can't wait to get into it. I mean, my first time back in the Superdome in a long time, and what a welcome back. It was a hell of a time. We'll get into it in a little bit, but I knew 37 seconds was way too much for number 9. Might have picked against the Saints, but that didn't mean I was pulling against them. So can't wait to get into it this week.
Stat Ron, how was DJ Hardhead? How ham did he go when that kick went through?
Public bar in DuPont Circle was electric. I don't know if you guys followed me on Instagram, but I put a video up of my story of DJ Hardhead. He got down on the ground and was doing all his dancing, and it was a scene in DC. I had people all over me. I had actually a U.S. congressman from Louisiana, Mr. Cedric Richmond, who I had no idea was even in the building after we kicked the field goal, turn around and start hugging me. And so just kind of what you get in DC. You never know. And it was electric. And again, just what a game.
In Ron and I's section, we had that kind of nirvana where everybody was full of adrenaline, just hugging everybody right after that field goal win. And that was a 10 out of 10, 100% pure love in the Dome in that game. So Campbell, Stat Ron, that's so spot on because that's how it was in the Dome too. Great to hear that magic was transferred. Ron, before you move us along here, were you able to keep your shirt on throughout? Because if my memory serves me correctly, in that excitement, maybe some fabric fell off our back.
I was going to go there before we went anywhere else, so I'm glad you could bring it up. That's why you're the man. I just want to let everybody know that our boy Jorge, yes, while our section was just so ecstatic, everybody's hugging everybody, I had the pleasure of hugging a shirtless George. And if anybody knows George and has ever seen George with his shirt off, knows how bittersweet of an experience that was for me. And I challenged him. I said, George, it's only week one. What are you doing? You can't be taking your shirt off. What are you going to do in week 4 against the Cowboys? Without hesitation, my man Jorge says, pants, bro. So watch out for the tearaways in week 4, everybody. So, all right, let's get into a little bit of what we saw and what happened, what transpired week 1. This game was always going to be a premier matchup, right? We weren't downplaying this opponent. This was a playoff team last year, and by the moves they made this offseason, they're competing to go to the playoffs and make a run deep into the playoffs this season. But that being said, we had some matchups that we thought were going to be favorable. And one of the things that I'd like to first start out talking about is the defensive line play and how we were able to get pressure onto Deshaun Watson. That was a very big win. But, Jay, it's just like I said. I said I was having nightmares of a defensive line that was maybe having too much success and creating too big of lanes as we collapse the pocket on Deshaun Watson. And sure enough, he was able to leak out for some of those big plays. But one of the popular topics is how the defensive line played all together, right? We knew going in we were down a defensive tackle or two, actually, if we're counting Rankins. We knew that, and we also knew Onyemata was going to be down. Interesting strategy employed by Dennis Allen, right? Starts 3 defensive ends a lot of the times, a lot of phantom D where, all 3 of them, Hendrickson, Davenport, and Jordan, all standing up, kind of floating around, choosing their spots, all with Malcolm Brown in the middle or Shy Tuttle or Stallworth in there. So, Jay, what were some of your observations on the defensive line play? What went well? What didn't go so well? And maybe tease us a little bit on what we can expect to improve upon with Onyemata back.
Sure. We previewed it last week. We talked about how the Texans offensive line, this was a new group. I didn't realize till I got to the Dome I was antsy. We got in there about 35 minutes early. Ron, I know you were in there about 3.5 hours early. But Titus Howard was inactive, the rookie from Alabama State with a finger injury. I forget who replaced him. But that was a pretty inexperienced group, a group that hasn't played together a lot. I think the Saints really reaped the benefits of that. Trey Hendrickson built on a very solid preseason. It was great to see him build on that body of work. And that transfer over from August into September looked like a madman coming off the ball against Laramie Tunsil, who the Texans essentially just gave up 2 first-round draft picks for and was a factor late in the game. Ron, you ask about defensive line from a positive standpoint. That's what comes to mind right away. Cam Jordan on the opposite side, number 94. Saints just gave him a nice contract extension this offseason. He showed no signs of slowing down to me. He looks spry, firing off the ball. He's firing so quick he actually got an offsides penalty, I think, on a 3rd down in the red zone. So I think the defensive line, on the edges, we look pretty good. Marcus Davenport, we haven't really talked about yet. Hot topic, lightning rod of a topic for Houdat fans out there. He didn't have the production. If you would have told me before the game that Marcus Davenport had 0 sacks and the Saints had 6 sacks, I think I would have left the Superdome being pretty discouraged about the future of number 92 from the University of Texas San Antonio right there. But I'm not going to be an apologist for Marcus Davenport. He didn't look good. I'm not ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater with him. He did have some flashes. He did make some plays, but there were some very bad plays as well. On the Deshaun Watson touchdown, he totally bit inside. Lost contain, allowing Watson to get outside. Talking about the interior defensive lineman, I know I'm going on a tangent here. Malcolm Brown showed some flashes early, had a nice sack, disruptive. Ron, they averaged 7.8 yards per carry. Stat Ron, check me on that. Might be a point yard off. So the Texans were gashing us with guys that they just picked up, Carlos Hyde, Duke Johnson, guys that other teams didn't really want, which worries you going forward. No, we didn't have Sheldon Rankins. No, we didn't have Onyemata. We cut the white guy, forget his name, Lehman, that played a lot. He looked a little thin in his backside, not a lot of sand in his ass. He was getting pushed all over the place inside. So I think this week we'll really benefit from having Onyemata back, a guy that had 35 tackles last year and 4.5 sacks, was more of a factor than you would think. And this week as well, luckily, fortunately for the Saints, they're playing an offensive line with 2 new starters, second-year guys with Burke at center and another guy at offensive guard for the Rams. And, a Todd Gurley that we'll get into later. Who knows what's going on with them? Only had over 100 yards combined, total yards on the game. So look for the Fortunes to improve this week against the run, but it was definitely a cause of concern in week 1.
George, let's highlight some of this critique on Marcus Davenport, because you've got, I wouldn't call them apologists. I'll call them guys that peel back the layers and shed a little more light than just, the first cut, the first live viewing of the game. And I'm specifically talking about our boy Deuce Wyndham, right? He does his own baldy breakdown showing you why, it might not be showing up on the stat sheet, but Davenport is making an impact. So what were your thoughts on the overall performance from Davenport?
So Davenport, when we were watching the game, we saw T-Rex dominating at 2 sacks. We saw Cam Jordan everywhere. And Ron, you and I said to each other, we don't even need other D linemen. Cam Jordan had an outstanding first half, an outstanding whole game. And Ron, he was literally a man possessed out there. And then we were noticing everyone shining in the passing game. Jay could remember it's Yantrell Henderson. He was the right tackle that replaced Titus Howard from Alabama State, and Mitchell Lowen was the defensive lineman. So to answer your question, Ron, it didn't look good from Davenport because he had that blown play where the quarterback scored the touchdown. Deshaun Watson had the fake on the run, and then he could have skipped to the pylon for the touchdown where Marcus Williams missed the tackle that has everyone up in arms because it reminds them of another missed tackle that Marcus Williams had. But, Ron, people started breaking down Davenport's play as a whole because after that play happened, all the people texted me, Davin bust, he's no good. But then the Deuce Wyndhams of the world were saying, hold your horses. You guys are overreacting. He actually had a very Onyemata-esque performance. So it's one of those performances that when you watch it live, you might miss some of the nuances that he did. But as time goes on and you read more about it and you see some tape, he had a very Onyemata assist. He was taking the inside track and letting other guys on the outside shine. So let's not say it was positive. Let's not say it was negative. Let's call it even Stevens, a very P.J. Williams day, because he had great flashes, or okay flashes, and he had that very negative flash on the Deshaun Watson touchdown. So as a whole, I don't want to say no thanks, but I'm not going to say he's not a bust.
Yeah, it was a weird game to judge him off of, and there are going to be plenty more opportunities, right? As I alluded to, we played 3 defensive ends for a lot of those snaps, and so that changes the scheme, right? They were doing a ton of stunts, like you said, George, where Davenport's intentionally trying to wash inside so that maybe somebody like Jordan can come from inside out, or we ran a lot of blitzes. I mean, it felt like a Greg Williams defense right there for a lot of that game. And hey, maybe that was just part of the game plan, right, to compensate for that lack of a pass rush up the middle. But I don't think it's the right game to judge his performance on. You're absolutely right, and I think we're going to see a lot more to look at this upcoming week when we're closer to full strength across the D line. But Statron, back me up on this if you saw any of this in the film study. But boy, we really missed the defensive tackle play, and like Jay alluded to, we had high runs. I think they had over 10 runs of 10 yards or more. Something like that, where it was just gashing. And that was nothing like we had seen last year, right? This was a great run defense last year. And I think what we saw is a spread offense that forces us to play with 2 linebackers. And when we've only got 1 true defensive tackle in there, those offensive linemen were getting up to the second level and mauling Anzalone and Demario Davis. I mean, were you seeing any of that, Statron?
Yeah, I really was, and I think a lot of it too. I think some of the linebacking play was a little bit aggressive at times, sometimes overshooting gaps, which I think got them kind of eaten up by the offensive line in Houston. And so you did see a lot of holes open up, but like Jorge was saying, getting Onyemata back, is going to be a big plus for this defensive line and cleaning up the interior because last year the Saints had a pretty good rush defense. I think they gave up something like around 80 yards a game. And I need to double check my own stats here, but I think that's just going to end up getting cleaned up next week, and hopefully, we'll see some better play out of that group.
Ron, before we move on, can we put an exclamation mark on one point that we've made about D-lines? T-Rex looked like the water boy. He looked like Bobby Boucher on that one sack. And boom, hitting Watson. You know, if we expected a big leap from him last year in his sophomore season. Hey, sometimes guys develop at different rates. Actually, all the time, guys develop at different rates. If he becomes a situational third down pass rusher, guys like Bobby McCray or Hargrove from the inside, a guy that can attack the quarterback effectively in these NASCAR packages, that is such an asset to this defense, and I'm proud of him for emerging. So let's give a kudos to T-Rex before we say Davenport this or Davenport that. Hey, he might be developing beneath our eyes, and it's fun to watch.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, all right, let me flip it over for y'all. Let me flip it over to the other line, where another hot topic: J.J. Watt recording 0 stats across the board, and that is obviously headline news for a guy that is a perennial All-Pro, perennial Defensive Player of the Year. As Jay alluded to in the last episode, I believe 16 sacks last year, and our boy Ryan Ramczyk shut his ass down. Now, this is debated, right? We've even got with people under the overpass and within the group, within Pro Uptown Talk, debating this. Jay, what did you see? Was it truly a Ryan Ramczyk all-star performance, or was it the game plan?
It's probably a little bit of both. You can't just say that, Ramczyk locked him down the full game, right? You're going against the 2-time, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year and J.J. Watt. You'd be foolish as a head coach and a play caller of Peyton's pedigree to not say, hey, let's throw a couple screens over there. Let's do a couple of delayed handoffs to Kamara, try to throw this guy off, right? So there's definitely some of that going on. But when you're in the Superdome, and you guys can attest to this, is you can single in on single positions. So it was fun to be there and be able to watch on third down and obvious passing down. On first down, when they have Murray in there, they're probably going to run. What's McCoy look like as a rookie? What does Ramczyk look like as a second-team All-Pro against All-World J.J. Watt? And to me, the plays that I saw, it wasn't like he had a lot of help. He was moving his feet quickly, and he was stoning them. It was like 2 grizzly bears, and Watt was bringing everything that he had, and Ramczyk looked great. And then aside from just pass protection, in the third quarter, I know I sent you guys the video, but there's a delayed handoff to Kamara. Ramczyk sticks around in the spot long enough to get a piece of Watt for Watt to blow by the play. And then Ramczyk's 3 yards ahead of Kamara, 12 yards down the field, waiting to seal off a linebacker that comes along or push out the defensive back 12 yards down the field. Kamara ends up running for 27 yards on 1st and 20. So at the end of the day, guys like Kamara, Michael Thomas, Drew Brees are going to get the credit. But let's give some kudos to Ryan Ramczyk, because it's certainly well-deserved after going against a guy like J.J. Watt. And hopefully we're saying the same thing about Eric McCoy this weekend, who looks like a third-year pro that's been at this for a long time and not a rookie in his first game of his career after he goes against Aaron Donald.
You're absolutely right, Jay. I mean, my film study, it was a little bit of game planning, right? I mean, right off the bat, we're throwing quick screens and then we're quick passing away from Watt. We're running away from Watt, or even if we are letting him run upfield, we're letting him use his own aggression against himself, and we're running right by him. So, but you are absolutely right. Ramczyk played a hell of a game. But I'd have to think that part of this was how well McCoy was. I mean, you didn't hear his name called once. He just looked like he gelled so well in this offensive line. Saw many a time where Warford would just help right at the snap to pass his man off to him, and then he could go help out Ramczyk on Watt. And just McCoy didn't miss a beat out there. And so, yeah, we're going to get into that matchup. That's just, man, everybody's going to have all their eyes on that matchup this upcoming week. But, George, Another thing that we need to highlight this game, because going in, we had questions. Who was going to be the number 2 wide receiver? Who was going to step up? Oh, ye of little faith. Who stepped up, George?
Ted Ginn, but Ted Ginn we know is all reliable when he's healthy. But it was just fun to see him out there. And he was just the steady Eddie we needed as that wide receiver too. Over 100 yards, caught the catches on the game-winning drive that we needed. And the series before, on that 3rd and 2, when we went long to Ted Ginn, no one in the Superdome saw that coming. Ted Ginn was money. But one point I want to make about Eric McCoy before we move completely to the wide receivers, I thought Eric McCoy was very impressive in one specific area. I mean, he was great all around. But, guys, so we had the ball with 30 seconds left, 37, give or take, stat, Ron, and we had one timeout. We had two plays. Where we got the completion, and then everyone runs to Breeze for Breeze to spike. And if McCoy gets that wrong, we either have a runoff, a clock runoff, or we have to burn a timeout. And this is this guy's first game as a pro in the most stressful situation of running to the line to snap that ball at the exact right moment so that everyone's set and Breeze can just spike it. And for a rookie in his first game, that might seem kind of minute, but to me, that was very impressive in that moment because that's a lot of pressure in his first game. Ron, I was so proud. I'm going to answer your question now. I was so proud of Ted Ginn because that's what we need all year. Because last year in the Rams playoff game, they doubled and triple team can't guard Mike. So, don't be mad at can't guard Mike if he's double and triple team, if he's not catching the ball. He's doing his job if he's double and triple team. Who's not doing his job is the guy who's not catching 7, 8 targets. And that's going to be on Jared Cooks. It's going to be on the Ted Ginns and the Kamaras and the Traquans. You don't have to worry about Kamara, but these other guys, they need to start proving it now. And Ted Ginn did it. I loved it, Ron. I loved it. That was so smart what he did on that last drive with the last little comeback route to set up the – I don't want to use profanity here, but to set up the Will Lutz game-winning field goal. If you want to start breaking down our range of emotions on that last drive, I'm all for it. But all hats off to Ted Ginn because he was instrumental in that. He was paramount in that.
Well, okay, let's transition, I guess, some into that. I mean, let me kick it to Stat Ron, since he was the one out of the group that was watching this on TV in a group setting. I mean, you have a team that makes this comeback in the third quarter, right? Get back into the game. Honestly, get back to the situation where we think we got the game handled, and then you give up this 2-play touchdown drive. Walk me through it, Stat Ron. Like, how just deflated was the room? Were there people still with hope with 37 seconds? And then kind of give us that slow crescendo of how it all came back.
Yeah, so the group I'm watching with, very emotional group, as are a lot of the Hoodats out there. And, from my perspective, I kind of just stood there and was just kind of like honestly laughing. I was like, you got to be kidding me. But then Fairbairn misses the extra point. And I immediately am like, holy, shit, this is like, this is Baltimore all over again, right? Last year when Tucker missed the extra point and the Saints survived, it was the same kind of deal, and then I see, you see the flag, Gardner Johnson with the questionable, and I don't know if you guys want to talk about that, but, the questionable call with the roughing the kicker, sure enough, second try makes it. In my head, 37 seconds with one timeout, I thought that's plenty enough time for Drew Brees to take the ball down the field. And the entire room was, I think there was a lot of hope, especially after that first completion. And so everyone is on edge, and it was wild. It was just a great way to kick off the season, and I don't want it. I don't want that to happen again. I mean, for my blood pressure, but no, it was a wave of emotions, but a lot of cheers and hoodatting, and it was crazy.
Stat Ron, did you think it was crazy? Because I did at the time when we didn't call the timeout on the second play, because I wanted to do one more play to run out of bounds. And to me, when there were 6 seconds left, to me, that seemed like a very easy thing for the Texans to win the game. I thought we did it backwards. It all ended up working all right because of the ridiculously stupid defense the Texans put out there to give Ted Ginn that 10-yard cushion and give Will Lutz the opportunity to hit a game-winning field goal. But to me, live in the Dome, that seemed reversed and like a mistake. When you were watching it in a more, I'm sure you were stressed, but on TV, did you think that was a mistake? Because in person, I did.
Yeah, I thought for sure that a timeout would have been called. I didn't think that Brees was going to try to run down. That completion to Thomas was 11 yards. Not a crazy amount of yards to run down, but the clock's ticking, and they have a timeout, and so I was concerned, but then I knew they just had to get a quick completion to Ginn, and Brees had it timed out, 3-step hit Ginn on the in route, and Ginn did his job and went immediately down, timeout, 2 seconds left, and the rest is history.
And Ron, I know it's time that we transition. Ron's out there. We have a minute mark where we're like, okay, we have to wrap a bow on the Texans game and move on. We're hitting that minute mark. But there's one play and player we need to talk about before we go past the Texans. And Ron, I want to hear your 2 cents. Come on, PJ is one of us. He might be a knucklehead, but he's our knucklehead. Would you have strangled PJ if he was sitting next to you after that Stills touchdown? Or are you more mad at the defense DA put out there to not allow a safety behind and go all in on the sack?
No, I alluded to it before. I think this was Greg Williams' defense all over again, where, we're just going to try to get to the quarterback as best we can and just beat him to shit all game. But, if you can throw it over the top in that time frame and we don't get home, well, then that's on us. I mean, it was high risk, high reward D all game long. And I know there were certain plays where just individuals like DeAndre Hopkins just make a play, right? They just beat their man. They make their play. But, that was ludicrous to me because we saw earlier in the game when you do put Marcus Williams back there, he made a nice pick. I mean, that's what free safety was supposed to look like, right? He comes over, makes the easy interception. That's what it should have been the other night. But, I cannot expect our freaking slot corner to run 40, 50 yards down the field with a receiver and still be behind him. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. So, George, how's this for a transition? So everybody knows what happened at the end of the first half with the referees, and that could have gone a certain direction for this team. And then on this 2-play touchdown drive, you have this debatable roughing the kicker, like Statron alluded to, and that could have gone a certain way, both with the fans, with the players, the whole team. But they still continued to fight. They overcame the adversity. I thought, man, you get Lutz within 60, he's going to blast this thing. He missed from 54 earlier in the game. I knew he wasn't going to miss again. The guy's too good, and so. What kind of storyline are we even talking about if we lose this game? I can't even imagine. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. We saw all the damn referee jerseys this past weekend. It disgusts me. But the fact that we won this game and in the way that we did, I think propels us. It just shows that we have put the no call so far behind us, and it is the perfect segue into this week 2 matchup with the Rams, because we just proved that we're better than that. We can still overcome that. And now we're going to go into LA and prove it to them. And I think we're catching this team at the right time of the year. We talk about that a good bit, right, Jay? We talk about when you play teams. I think this is the right time to be playing the Rams as well. We alluded to it. Gurley didn't look the same. Goff definitely didn't look the same. They're going to be geeked up for this one. There's no doubt. But let's get into some of the matchups that we want to look at primarily. So Jay, I'll just toss it to you. You can go wherever you want with this. Where's the matchup that you're looking for? Where do you want to go? Rams Saints.
Yeah, I think we've covered the defensive line a lot. When you look at the Rams on defense, you think of Aaron Donald in the middle. Last week against the Panthers, he only had 1 tackle. Against the Saints in the NFC Championship game, he was pretty limited in his production as well. He finished the season with 20 and a half sacks last year. Stat Ron, it might have been 21 and a half sacks. He's coming off a game where he had one tackle. He kind of had a J.J. Watt unproductive like game against the Panthers last week. He's facing a rookie this week. You know he's going to be licking his chops. For me, I'm saying, all right, Eric McCoy, what you got? You know, you showed us a lot week one. You showed us nothing but good things this preseason. Talk about a measuring stick. When the Byron Scott Hornets used to play the San Antonio Spurs, championship Spurs, they talked about how it was a measuring stick game. This is a measuring stick matchup for Eric McCoy. Let's see how he does against Aaron Donald. How much help does he need? And let's just keep him off number 9, please, Eric, the best you can. The other matchup that I'm looking at when you talk about the Rams defense is Marcus Peters, the cornerback who talks a lot. Aqib Talib, probably going to be a Hall of Fame cornerback, has been playing. This is his 13th year and can still play. Peters didn't like in the regular season matchup in 2018. The Saints are very familiar with the Rams. These two teams are very familiar with one another. This is their third time matching up in the last 2 seasons. Peters didn't like Sean Payton throwing a deep ball to Michael Thomas late in that regular season matchup, which led Marcus Peters after the game saying, we'll see what happens next time. We're going to play them again. Indeed, the Saints and Rams did play again, as we all know, in the NFC Championship game. The Rams held Michael Thomas to only 35 yards receiving, which was a low on the season for Thomas. As good as Thomas is, he's still productive. You know, watching that game against the Texans last week, the guy still manages to get open. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams, it wasn't like it was solely Marcus Peters slowing down Michael Thomas. It was one of those Patriots deals where Wade Phillips and the Rams defense said, let's take their best player away and then see what the Saints can do. So they were double and triple teaming him. So I want to see what they do to Michael Thomas this week. Because of that, as a residual effect, I'm expecting Alvin Kamara and Jared Cook to be heavily involved in the passing game. Ron, I know we talked a lot about Jared Cook coming into the game. I was kind of thinking, 2 catches for 37 yards in the first half. He's on his way. And then all of a sudden he slowed down. There were a couple of plays throughout the game where I'm like, why is Jared Cook not in the football game? Like in the red zone, on third down. Like, why is this 6'6" tight end not in the game right now? It didn't make much sense to me. So I just expect as the season progresses and the chemistry evolves between Breeze and Cook for his production to step up. And I think this would be a great week to do it, given the coverage ability of Peters, Talib, and the aforementioned Roby that we won't get into his relevance here.
Well, Jay, that was a lot, and man, you got me like licking my chops on a lot, but I just want to hit one thing because I brought that up in conversation at work this week with one of these super fan Rons that I work with that I hope he's a listener on the podcast, but I don't know. Peyton's just got these personnel groupings for certain plays, and that it doesn't matter that, Cook is the right guy to be in that play. I can remember I think it was like the Latavius Murray touchdown play, our personnel group out there was Taysom Hill, Josh Hill, Keith Kirkwood, and Latavius Murray. And I'm saying, we're in the red zone, and we don't have Mike Thomas in, Jared Cook in, Alvin Kamara in. What the hell are we doing? And Murray runs it in for the touchdown, I believe, on that play. I could be wrong. I could be thinking of this could be the interception play in the red zone. But either way, he's got these weird personnel groupings that you're saying, are we trying to be incredibly unpredictable? Well, either way, it was one of those plays where you're asking yourself, are we just trying to be that unpredictable, or does Peyton really have this much faith in these guys when you're throwing out that personnel grouping, guys that we talked about being on the bubble of this team like Kirkwood? So, all right, George, I got to kick it over to you because there was a lot covered in there. So this matchup of McCoy and Donald, do you see Peyton putting the faith in McCoy after this past week and saying, all right, you got him? Or how much play calling and what kind of play calling and scheme defense can you expect to see to try to negate Aaron Donald?
Okay, to answer that question, You're going to have tons of help from Warford and Pete, and you're going to see a lot of screens and short passes to Kamara, like Christian McCaffrey had success last week with the Panthers. So, come on, putting McCoy versus Aaron Donald, it's a lot to ask. Of course, he'll have help, and you're going to see a lot of screens. That's the answer to that question. But, Ron, in your transition from the Texans game to the Rams game, you brushed over the no call and the referee wearing jerseys that we saw last week, which was ridiculous. Now we have Sunday, the rematch of the NFC Championship, and we're going to watch this game on CBS, a national televised game. The whole pregame, the whole first quarter, it's going to be obnoxious. We're going to want to hit our heads on the tables and the wall because of how much they're going to talk about the no call. Because this is the national media, and they love to beat this dead horse. And it's something that we're over and that we're tired of discussing, but it's what's going to happen this Sunday. And it's going to be annoying to many of us, if not all of us. But, guys, Ron's, the only thing that makes this worse is us continuing it. That was ridiculous and embarrassing when all these Saints fans were wearing the referee jerseys. We as a fan base, we need to close that chapter. Forget about it. And then move on to this year. I thought as an entire fan base we had done that already. And then you show up last Monday night and 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, I don't know how many, so many Hoodats showed up wearing that referee jersey. And then the referees had a botched call in the first half when they challenged each other and then penalized us with the runoff, which was horse you know what. That did not belong punishing us because they were just correcting each other. We were not involved. We shouldn't have been punished. That was idiocracy. However, it's not this big conspiracy. We don't need to get the strong arm to get us to fight the NFL. It's not a conspiracy. I'm not defending the great Matty Waldrons and the referees for everything they do wrong, but this is getting obnoxious, and I don't know what the word is, but it's ugliness that we don't want to carry over into this year when things go wrong. So hey, we won week 1. Let's put all that behind us. And brace for all the no call chit chat this weekend because we play the Rams. But please, we just have to move on. I can't believe I'm even having to talk about this because to me, this seems so obvious. Ron, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I tried to brush over that just because I didn't know how deep we wanted to go into this. But yes, I felt embarrassed by it that was on national TV and we had that many fans dressed up like that. And that's why I said it was so crucial that we won the way we did and overcame any potential, controversy and just carrying last year into this year and saying, oh, well, here we go again. We're not only playing the other team across the ball, but we're playing the refs too. So it was just so nice that, yes, we got that behind us. So, all right. The next matchup that I think we need to highlight is Alvin Kamara and just the Wade Phillips defense. Last year when we played this team, Alvin Kamara was the check down, right, George? I mean, it was, it's third and manageable. What are we going to do? We're going to move Alvin Kamara in and out of the backfield, get him matched up on a linebacker, have him beat the guy to the sideline, get the check down. You got to think that Wade Phillips is going to try to eliminate that matchup as best he can in the receiving game. I think he's got enough confidence in their just straight up run defense with Aaron Donald up the middle that they're not going to make too many compensations there. But you got to think that these linebackers are gearing up on how they're going to contain Kamara. And to me, as we already alluded to, does that or does that not put a little bit more of a spotlight on Jared Cook and his opportunity to have this be the breakout game? He is the X factor that was not in this game last year.
Fully agree. And remember Kamara's rookie year? One of his best performances was against the Rams when we're down double digits and he had that handoff that went, I don't know, stat Ron, 75, 70 yards for a touchdown. And that was when everyone realized, man, he runs really fast. We're not looking like he's running that fast. Kamara is going to showcase his talents just like Christian McCaffrey did week 1 versus the Rams. But just like you said, Ron, there's going to be a focus on Mike Thomas, like there was last year in the NFC Championship, and Kamara this week, because Kamara, he's had a great 3 performances versus Sean McVay Rams. Once his rookie year, twice last year. So time to shine, Jared Cook. Ron, you're spot on. I'm just putting an exclamation mark on what you have to say, on what you had to say here. So another matchup to discuss, and we get Jay's 2 cents on this, is so Gurley, he still almost had 100 yards last week on less than 15 carries. He still has it, but it just doesn't seem as dominant. He's more of the change of pace running back, and Malcolm Brown is their new Anderson, their new bell cow, who they're going to ride all day long. So is that a matchup with those 2 running backs that we should be worried for or excited to go after now that we're bolstered with Onyemata? And that question's to my main man, Jay.
Yeah, it's a good question, George. I think Gurley at his best is right up there with Ezekiel Elliott. He's an MVP candidate. And I haven't read too far into it, but it sounds like they're worried about some arthritis in his knee that goes back to college. And it was extremely interesting to me watching the NFC Championship game and seeing CJ Anderson. They're not going to throw a guy that was on the Lions midway through the season and on the street out there ahead of Todd Gurley if there isn't something wrong. And it's more than just miles on the tires. And they did the same thing in the Super Bowl. And the local Los Angeles media was asking the same questions when Gurley was limited in training camp. So, yes, George, he totaled over 100 yards, had 97 rushing yards. I'm not going to jump to any conclusions and say this guy's definitely not the same guy, but if it walks like a duck, if it talks like a duck, it probably is a duck. And in this case, I'm seeing those signs that where there's smoke, there's fire, to use another analogy, that Gurley just isn't the same. Now, is he better than the combination of Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson at this point? Probably so. Malcolm Brown had 50 rushing yards. I know they drafted the rookie from Memphis, the speedster, small guy, kind of a change of pace type back who didn't have a lot of run last week. But I think you can expect a similar quality of effort from this stable of running backs as you did last week against the Texans.
Ron, can I pose a question to you now? Because I know you're gonna drive the train here, but you don't get to answer questions. And Stat Ron should get some questions too. But I want you to play, color, play the deuce role a little bit, and not always Shreve. Because last week, the Rams offensive line had a bad performance. There's a Locked On Rams podcast I listened to get caught up with the Rams and their big 2 cents from the week 1 match versus the Panthers that they won was that their offensive line looked deplorable except for Andrew Whitworth. Now we have one of our dogs back. We got Onyemata back, ready to go strong. Could this be another matchup? Because they want to hit Jared Goff where we get 4+ sacks once again.
I think that is 100% viable, but I think you see a way different game plan than you saw in Carolina. That was the national broadcast this past Sunday, and with the Saints playing on Monday, every Saints fan got an opportunity to put in the scouting report. So if you didn't, shame on you, but that's why we're here for y'all. So remember back to that NFC Championship. What worked for these guys so well against us? The play-action rollouts with Goff, getting him outside of the pocket, away from guys like Cam Jordan, and challenging us to keep contained, but also challenging those defensive backs. That is where I'm really going to be looking at it. But to answer your question, George, if last week was any representation of how Dennis Allen's going to be handling this defense this year, I could see four sacks coming from the linebackers and DBs alone on blitzes, man. It's ridiculous how much we were blitzing last week, and it's exciting, but it is high risk, high reward football. And And we saw it, right? We saw it in giving up some very big plays to the Texans. And here you go again. You're playing an offense that is 100% capable of making those big plays. But I still think that they have doubts about Jared Goff, even despite his performance last year. Week 1 was not NFC Championship Goff. And so I would not be surprised if you see them blitz and decrease the time he has to sit back and let things develop. So I think 100% this could be more than 4 sacks this week. So I appreciate you throwing that one to me. So let me throw one right back at you on that same point. We talked about who's new on our offense. Some guy that wasn't there last year by the name of Cooper Kupp is going to be playing in this one. Presents a whole nother dynamic for our slot corner. Something I thought was very telling last week, I didn't see how many snaps P.J. Williams had this past week. Stat run, that'd be a great one to look up to compare to our boy Patrick Robinson, who rode Pine hard. But how's P.J. Williams going to line up with Cooper Kupp this week, George?
That was a talking point I had myself. You know, if PJ continues to be a potential Achilles heel, will he be replaced? And this is a great test to find out. And Ron, there's another name you're forgetting. Yeah, our boy Chauncey Gardner-Johnson had that very questionable call on the extra point that Stat Ron already talked about. But he was dancing at the kickoff to Choppa style, and the Dome loved him. So he has some energy. He might be a player here. I know there's more to football than dancing, but don't leave his name out of the hat. So if you see PJ struggle again, maybe throw in P-Rob, maybe not mid-game, but maybe week 3 versus the Seahawks, or let's see what Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has up his sleeve, because that was a position we talked about endlessly on the podcast during training camp. Are we worried about nickel? Well, of course we're worried about nickel. And are we feeling cozy at night now with PJ? No, you'll never feel cozy at night with PJ. So I would say let's watch and maybe have a very open mind to replacing PJ. Campbell, Staron, what do you think?
So PJ Williams was in 79% defensive snap count, and Gardner Johnson only ended up playing 3 defensive snaps, but 21 over on special teams. But yeah, I think we all know that PJ Williams, he can cover inside of 10 yards, and past 10 yards he can't, and so that's going to be an issue, especially. We're talking about how aggressive Dennis Allen wants to be with, with getting to the quarterback, and right now it's not a huge concern for me yet. I think it's week 1, right? So I don't know if PJ will be. I don't know what week 8. What do you want to call it? Like when there might be a switch, but I think that over the next couple of weeks we'll definitely start to see some other guys get some more snaps at the nickel and kind of assess from there. But again, I think PJ Williams is, we know what we're getting out of him, and I don't know if it's going to improve.
Okay, so I think we've broken down some pretty good matchups. I guess, Jay, just general question on offense. This is going to be a significantly better pass rush this week than last week. Dante Fowler looked like maybe the Dante Fowler that was drafted number 1 overall in Jacksonville.
Sure.
He looked pretty good. And I'm not going to lie, it had me a little concerned for this upcoming week. However, like I said, playing teams at the right time, right? It's week 2, and Teron Armstead doesn't get much healthier than this. Am I right?
Knock on wood, but yeah, sometimes in life, Ron, all we need is a fresh start. It seemed like Fowler was cursed from the beginning in Jacksonville, if you remember correctly. I think it was his first mini camp where he tore his ACL, battled injuries there, played 3.5 years there, was traded to the Rams, played well against the Saints right away, and we needed a pass rush. And I remember thinking, man, why didn't we trade for this guy? It seemed like everything that Les Snead was doing in Los Angeles turned to gold. Everybody that he brought in. He's really done a heck of a job as the general manager in Los Angeles. Usually it doesn't work like that where you bring in a bunch of big names in football and you win a lot of games. Usually you have to build through the draft, see the New England Patriots, and see the Vince Young dream team Philadelphia Eagles for the example of free agents not working out. But that's a long way of answering. Yeah, Fowler got off to a good start with 2 sacks against the Panthers last week. Always a concern, outside of Aaron Donald, there's Michael Brockers, who's a good pass rusher from the inside as well. So the Saints are going to have their hands full. And, yeah, I think we're not mentioning Armstead as much, who's a dynamic left tackle in this league. There's a play to the left side similar to Ramczyk on the right side where Armstead was out in front, of Kamara making blocks all the way downfield in the secondary on the second level. So, yeah, we need that guy healthy badly.
Ron, one matchup I have for you is Little Sean versus Big Sean. And Little Sean beat Little Sean McVay beat, the older version of himself, 2017 in that great game. 2018 regular season, Saints won in a fantastic game. And then the NFC Championship, we all know about that. So our Sean, our boy, is down 2-1, and that just doesn't sit right with the universe. So we're going to have to find a way for our boy Sean Payton to outsmart Little Sean. That's the matchup I'm watching. I know we're talking about the defensive coordinators a lot. What about these great offensive masterminds? They're going to be fantastic to watch because they're both as good as it gets. That's a great matchup. But, Ron, you're not the only one with questions out there. I think we have some Rons out there that have some questions for us.
That's an excellent point, George. Excellent segue. Man, I got to watch it. You might steal these hosting jobs from us. So, all right, I'm gonna throw y'all with one that we've covered, but I have to show love to these fans that send these questions out, right? Especially a Jesuit 07 member like my boy Jack Quinn here. So, Stat Ron, in your opinion, how much of an issue will A.A. Ron Donald be against Eric McCoy?
I think one-on-one, it will be somewhat of an issue. I think it's going to be kind of a back-and-forth battle. But I think we can all agree that the amount of times that Aaron Donald will have one-on-one with Eric McCoy is not going to be a whole lot. I think, and I mean, we saw what Carolina did last week, almost triple teaming Aaron Donald. He's going to get multiple guys, either a chip or a help with a double team. And so I don't know how much that, Sean Payton is going to put McCoy in that situation, or Breeze is going to set protection to put McCoy in that situation. But, I think we're talking a rookie that there's high hopes for versus, someone who's trying to be the greatest defensive tackle in all of football in NFL history. And so, I don't think that McCoy will have a lot of wins over Aaron Donald one-on-one, but I think that he'll hold his own.
Well, George, I got the next one, and this one's not necessarily X's and O's, but this is a sign of the times and where the trends are right now. And it's also reminding me of who was a no-show this past week under the overpass was our boy Kuhn Dog. So he's asking not what was the beer of choice under the overpass. He's asking what was the hard seltzer of choice under the overpass. Was it Truly? Was it White Claw? Was it one of these up-and-comers? What was it under the overpass Monday night?
D, none of the above. LaCroix boys went into the game sober. D, LaCroix. Final answer.
So what's up with that, man? Sober September, man? That was that. Y'all threw me a pretty big curveball, man. I think we had at one point a majority of people drinking LaCroix over beer or an alcoholic beverage. George, you just straight on that 5-hour energy, huh?
This is 30, Ron. Red Bull replacing, Miller Lite, Miller High Life. Need to be fresh for the next day and the next week. So LaCroix boys, baby. Red Bull Ron.
Ron, the worst part about not drinking is having to answer all the questions on why you're not drinking. So I will not answer that question, and I'll just say I enjoyed my LaCroix thoroughly.
All right. Look, this next one was a text in, on my personal line. So, Jay, I'm going to throw this one to you. I already answered it promptly via text, but, I'm going to publicize my boy Napoli here. So he just had the question.
Nip, nap, paddywhack. Throw the dog a bone.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. So, guy's a pretty educated football fan, right? He's
Sure.
asking, hey, 6 seconds left. We throw that pass to Ted Ginn. Why didn't the Texans just not touch him? Can you walk us through what the rules are there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I asked the same thing to George earlier this week. And, man, that's why a defensive coordinator earns $1 million, right? You talk to him about the situation, what's going on, but I don't know how much time you had to talk to him in between plays because it was a spike ball. It wasn't like a timeout that led to that play. But it takes a very heady defensive back in that situation to think, oh, I can't touch him. And then if you're an offensive coordinator or if you're a head coach like Sean Payton, or if you're an experienced quarterback like Drew Brees, I'm telling my receivers in the huddle, I'm saying you catch the ball, you're on your knee, you're giving yourself up. Because the rule, StatRon can check me on this, is if a receiver goes to his knee, the play is dead, right? Similar to if a quarterback slides, then he doesn't need to be touched for the play to be dead. As soon as that quarterback makes it out like he's sliding, that's where the ball is and that's where the play is dead. So I hadn't seen the Ginn play and paid that close of attention to see if he actually did go to a knee. But, yeah, if I'm the defensive back, I'm counting 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, making sure no funny stuff's happening, and then I'm touching him on the back.
Ron,
and that's about –
we have a question for you. This just came in from Sweaters, a.k.a. the boss, asking you, specifically you, Ron, last year we waited all year and we're counting the days for a clickbait touchdown. Now, week 1, we have a clickbait touchdown. Will this trend continue and us see consecutive weeks with a clickbait touchdown? Directed again to you, Ron.
I think absolutely the trend continues. If you just look at the personnel groupings that the guy's in on now, it's just like we predicted, right? He is lining up at wide receiver, tight end, running back, quarterback consistently. And George, at one point, you elbow nudged me and said, man, we need to be running more Taysom Hill right here. We need to be running it down their throats, milking some clock, because this past week it was just such a shootout. You just thought, man, if we could just have one good long drive, we could just take the momentum for good. So I want to see more of it this week. You know how effective he was on the passing play that never was in that NFC Championship game where he just missed the wide open receiver going down the field. So you hope it's a continuing trend. I just hope we're not asking too much of the man, because he's not a professional wide receiver, but he is a hell of a gamer. So I want to see it continue. I think we need to set the over-under now for Boogie on that Galatoire's lunch. I'm going to set it high because we're aiming high, and I'm going to say over 7 touchdowns this season, rushing and receiving combined. You heard it here first.
Ron, whatever you want to put on that one, I love our boy Clickbait. I wish him the world and all the success and all the great things that he can do in life only happen to him. But he's not going to get more than 7 touchdowns. Your eyes in the pie after you watch 1 touchdown. Ron, that's a bit much.
Well, Jay's usually one for high numbers. Jay, what do you think about that number? 7 touchdowns rushing and receiving.
I tell you what, he was in there a lot more often at tight end than I thought, and a lot more at receiver. It tells you what they're doing at those closed practices on airline drive, flexing them out like that. And then to see the guy running down on kicks. I mean, it's one thing to see on TV, but when you're actually there, you're like, man, this number 7 backup quarterback guy is wearing gloves. And then I think Peyton is just infatuated with the idea of using Hill. And you've almost seen the chemistry develop between Brees and Hill. and they're in that quarterback room together. So Breeze just loves getting this guy the ball. 7's a little bit high. I think a better number is around 5.
5 would still be amazing. I mean, think about where we were last year with this guy, and we were hoping and praying for the first touchdown. So I think it's only going to continue. His usage is only going to increase. So, all right, this is a big week, y'all. We're traveling across time zones. We're traveling to completely different ocean coasts, and so that just brings all kinds of new elements, right? You don't know what the weather could bring out there. You always hear, oh, it's sunny and 75, but you can't trust that. You can only trust Red, the weatherman.
Hey, Rons, it's Red, the weatherman. And man, what a close game it was in week 1. But we'll take the W. At week 2, we're on the road, and we're heading straight over to the LA Memorial Coliseum as we take on the Rams. Well, let's go ahead and look right at the weather. With a 0% chance of rain, southwest winds of 6 to 10 miles per hour, a high of 85 degrees. It's going to feel more like 90 degrees. It's important to point out, folks, that this stadium is outdoors. But it's also important to point out that it doesn't look like the weather's going to have too much of an effect. Anyway, Rons, kickoff's at 3:25 p.m., so let's get ready for a big one. And don't forget, it's Red, the weatherman.
All right. It's the French Quarter Realty Fantasy Minute, more like 4 minutes, but it's worth listening to. If you heard brokers Eric Wilkinson and George Johnson last week in their predictions, shoot, you're probably winning fantasy games. And if you keep winning fantasy games, your wife's not going to be upset about you putting that $100 towards the pot in August because you're about to win $1,200 total with the advice of George Johnson and Eric Wilkinson. So enjoy this week's French Quarter Realty Fantasy Minute.
All right, we're back again for a French Quarter Realty Fantasy Minute, Week 2 edition, 2 weeks into the season right here with Eric Wilkinson and George Johnson, our 2 brokers of French Quarter Realty. If there was any doubt that they know their stuff, just refer back to the previous episode. Eric recommending John Brown of the Buffalo Bills. All he did was go for over 100 and a tutty. That's over 16 points in most fantasy leagues. George talking about the tight end of the Oakland Raiders, Darren Waller. He went off as well. So how about those 2 recommendations to get it started for Eric and George? No pressure going into week 2. George, what are you looking at this week?
Thanks, Jansen. I would say for this week, people who are available on a lot of waiver wires, if you wanted to add depth to your running back, obviously Malcolm Brown is clearly the backup to Todd Gurley, getting more touches than Darrell Henderson, and with Gurley's knee issue, could have an even larger role throughout the season. The other running back I would say is Giovanni Bernard. He is backing up Joe Mixon, who was hurt. He feels like Joe Mixon may be coming back, but if you've ever had Giovanni Bernard, you know that he's pretty reliable to get some catches, some yards, and maybe a touchdown. As far as wide receivers, I like John Ross. With A.J. Green out, John Ross stepped up in a big way for the Bengals. He got 12 targets for 150 yards and a pair of touchdowns. And lastly, I would say if you're looking at your defense situation, despite the Saints putting up a ton of points on the Texans, they're facing the Jaguars and a rookie quarterback this week, and I expect them to bounce back in a big way.
Thank you, George. Eric, what you got for us this week?
All right, Jay, I'm getting a few guys in here. I'm buying guys like Jamison Crowder, leading the league with 17 targets, trying to acquire him. Looks like they're targeting him a lot for the Jets. Also, Danny Amendola. Looks like they're going to be playing from behind a lot in Miami. They're targeting him a lot there. Also, obviously, look for guys like Hollywood Brown. This guy only played 12 snaps, had 2 deep touchdown passes already, really making a mark already in week 1. And if you want to dig even deeper, you may remember a guy by the name of Trey Quinn. Looks like he's their slot guy in Washington. They're throwing the ball a little bit. They got a touchdown already week 1, but look for him to have an expanded role. Now who I'm selling, Guys, last week I told you to buy John Brown. This week, let's flip this guy. He blew up week 1. This is what we do in real estate. We buy low and sell high. John Brown's never going to be higher than he is this week. Try and get him on the trade market. See if there's somebody that loves John Brown, number 1 receiver. See if you can get your team a little bit more depth in a position of need. That's it.
All right, so we're even talking trades here in week 2. So these guys are into it. We're talking about Trey Quinn, the former LSU slot receiver from Barb High School in Lake Charles, highly touted, transfers to SMU, Mr. Irrelevant, if I believe, in the 2018 NFL Draft. We're talking about John Ross, ran the fastest 40-yard dash a couple years ago at the NFL Combine from UW. Shout out to Cooper Patagna out there in Pacific NOLA West. That's your French Quarter Realty. 4 minutes. Everything you need to know about fantasy, everything you need to know about real estate. Look us up. We're out here.
All right, Rons, and now we have some Rons of the week to go over. First, we have our newest Ronette, our newest Connie, our newest Rhonda. I couldn't remember the word, it was Rhonda. Our newest Rhonda, Lucille Schaefer. Welcome to the world. Shout out to our main man, Grammy, for having his number 1 daughter, Lucille Schaefer, Rhonda of the Week. Welcome. And we have 2 birthday shout-outs to give to. First, our main man, Andrew, the man that can do it all, the man that can do anything for your business, just as he did for Pro Saints Talk. You name it, you need it, he's got it. Marketing, graphic designs, podcast editing, photography, videography. Just the man can do it all, and does it gracefully. Andrew is our main man. We wouldn't be here without our main man. And he turned 21. He went to a rock concert in the Woodlands to celebrate, something I wouldn't do for $1 million. And they drove back Sunday night after the concert through the night to get back to school on Monday morning. But hey, however you want to celebrate, do you. Andrew, you are our main man, and happy birthday to our dog. And then number 2, our main man, Mr. Baldwin, our Tulane correspondent, turning 31. Hey, we're going to celebrate in style. Hey, Mr. Baldwin, you the man. We got more to celebrate your birthday coming up. I don't want to prelude or ruin anything, but we got big things coming for our main man, Mr. Baldwin. Now, Ron, lead us to the predictions of the game.
Well, okay, predictions, y'all. I'd like to have it pointed out that I was only 4 points off from victory. Had the Saints magically scored a touchdown on that last drive, I would have had the score completely right. So just keep that in mind. I may need to listen to our own fantasy advice because I am 0-1, but these predictions, I might be onto something. So I'll kick it off, and I'm going to say that this one, I could see it being a shootout again, but, man, I'm not even prepared with my own score here, but I'm just doing it. 27-24 Rams. I hate to do it. Jay, I feel like you last week. I'm going against the grain. Like I said, they can't win them all. I said 12-4. I think this is going to be one of the first 4 in this first 4 of the season. I think we go this first 4, we go 3-1, but I think this is going to be the one, as much as it hurts Saints fans to hear that. Jay, I'll kick it to you next. Score prediction.
Saints 42, Rams 27. I'm expecting the Saints to continue the offensive onslaught that they had in the second half against the Texans and bring that right into week 2 against the Rams. I'm expecting the defense to be much improved against the Rams. And I'm expecting the defense to be fortuitous, a la 2009, with Darren Sharper and those guys roaming in the defensive backfield, making plays, making timely interceptions. And I think you'll start to see the ball bouncing our way, continuing to bounce our way. And in addition to talent, Ron and George, stat Ron, you need the ball to bounce your way when you're going to make a Super Bowl run. I think we'll see that's going to become a pattern and become evident in week 2 against the Rams, 42-27. Who dats?
Ron, if you had asked me yesterday, I would say, hey, the Rams are going to win the regular season, and we're going to win the playoff matchup, the reverse of what happened last year versus the Rams. But now I had another 24 hours to chew on it, and shame on you for going against the Who-Dats. Yeah, I know where you were going with that. I kind of felt it at one time this week, but now that I really have a good understanding of what's going on, the Saints will prevail. We're going to win. This is a team that wants revenge drastically. Bill Belichick exposed the quarterback Jared Goff last year in the Super Bowl. This is our time to shine. This is our time to get redemption. You know we want it more than they did. You know they have no home superiority with that lukewarm fan base. This is our win. We're going to take it 31-21. Stat one, let's go to your prediction and then just go all the way through the corrections.
All right, Jorge, I got it. So for my prediction, and I said it on the Corey Johnson show yesterday, I think this game comes down to special teams. Week
Corey
one.
Johnson.
Corey Johnson. Week one, the Rams and the Panthers. The Rams had a kickoff out of bounds, a blocked punt, missed field goals. Special teams was not the strongest suit for the Rams, and they showed it week one. I think that the Saints make a play in special teams on Sunday, whether it's Taysom Hill blocking a punt or Jay's man Deontay Harris taking one back to the house to solidify a Saints win. 36-27, Saints win in Los Angeles. Now, on to the corrections. Let's start with Jay. Earlier talking about the Saints and the Texans, you had mentioned, and also Jorge had the same one. Titus Howard, out for the Texans, was actually replaced by our man Senio Clemente, and not Chantrell Henderson. Jorge. Henderson.
Wait. I want to question that. They're both tackles.
Clemente was playing.
Challenge on this? Can I get a challenge on
Clemente
this?
was playing left guard.
I know that.
Titus Howard's a guard.
Titus Howard's a tackle.
He's a guard.
Oh.
He's a guard.
Yeah. So, so that was a double correction there. Also,
Double doink.
I got another double doink too. Jansen referred to him as the white guy, and Jorge just butchered his name. It's a tough name to pronounce, but Mitchell Lavin is the correct pronunciation. Mitchell Lavin.
That's why we got you, Stat Ron.
He was actually cut after the game on Monday, cleared waivers, and was actually re-signed back to the practice squad this week. Back to Jay, talking about the Rams' two first-time starting offensive linemen this season. You had mentioned Burke was the name that you referred to for center. It's actually Brian Allen is the name of the center, and the guard is Joseph Noteboom is the other.
Crucify me.
All right, moving on to Jorge. I know you asked me to get you the correction on this. Alvin Kamara, rookie year versus the Rams. I think you said a 75-yard touchdown run. Very, very, very close. 74-yard touchdown run. So great job, Jorge.
I'm looking at it right now. Titus Howard is a tackle.
Dude. I'm looking at the Houston.
Let it go, man.
I'm looking at his Wikipedia, his draft profile.
Dude,
his
no.
position on
Wikipedia.
He's a tackle.
You just
He's
changed.
a tackle. I know who he is, Titus Howard. He's a big.
Dude.
I know exactly who he is.
Yo.
He's a tackle.
Are
Houston
you the
Texans.
last edit on that Wikipedia page?
Yes, for real.
I'm gonna be standing here all night because I know y'all are gonna change that from tackle to guard.
Oh my
Titus
God.
Howard is a tackle.
Oh my
And Mitchell
God.
Lavin. I'll give you that one. Okay, 74-75. That's not much of one.
Quit trying to justify your little corrections here, man. You were wrong.
I'm so chill about this, bro.
Okay.
George is
all right.
getting upset.
I know. Sorry. All right, Ron. The personnel group for Murray's 30-yard touchdown. And these are ones you guys asked for corrections on. So you admitted before you saying it. But Latavius Murray out of the pistol formation. Actually, the personnel on the field, Thomas, Kamara, Cook, and Ted Ginn. I think you said every single person besides those people. So
Oh,
A little-
hey, all right.
a little
What about
confusion
the
there, but-
interception?
I gotta go back and crunch numbers, so we'll get that.
Oh, all right.
for
Okay,
later.
yeah. No, it might have been the interception in the red
Okay.
zone.
Got it. And then actually, I'm correcting myself. So yeah, first time for that too. I had mentioned that the Saints defense let up an average of 80 rushing yards per game last year. I was off by 0.2, 80.2. So there we go.
That kind of self-criticality, Statron, is what's going to get us to the top.
Yeah, that's what makes us the best. So
We appreciate you, Styron, for everything you do.
yeah, Jorge just
say it and mean it, George.
Hey,
Say
Jorge
it
just
and
sent me the,
I'm just messing with you,
yeah.
man. We appreciate Hey, Statron, great humbleness there to correct yourself. That was a great episode. Statron, you really are bringing a great dimension to this. I don't remember. Does anyone remember even who our last stat boy was?
Who? What?
Yeah, I don't think we had one. Well, anyway,
Yeah,
guys, you
Rufy.
came under the overpass. We had a great time drinking LaCroix. I'm sorry I'm yelling. I'm very excited about Titus Howard and everything that had transpired last week. And, hey, we got another big game Sunday. But, hey, we'll be out in full force Sunday, 7:30, September 27th, I think. Whatever the last Sunday in September as we play the Cowboys. We'll be full Ron for that
29.
game. 29th, thank you. Don't be shy about going full Ron and visiting us. We're pretty harmless. We're pretty sober, so don't be afraid of us. I got something big that next Monday. So, guys, come say hello. Say, hey, I'm a fellow Ron. You can talk to Jansen. He'll answer any question you may have, sign your autographs, take a picture with your kids, whatever you want. We'll be out there all Sunday going full Ron to come visit because we had a great experience week 1. Jay, what else you got?
That's it, man. Covered a lot in this episode. It's good to be talking about games and upcoming games instead of talking about beat reporters' tweets on the first week of training camp. So glad it's finally here. And like I said last week, it's gonna be a great
Amen.
run.
Man, like we kicked off the podcast, it just feels so good to be 1-0 after week 1. And these guys may be preaching sober September, but we're preaching shirts off September. So get wild when the Saints go and prove me wrong this weekend, and we go 2-0 and we win on another Will Lutz field goal. Man, rip those shirts off, everybody. Swing them around your head like it's a helicopter. Pro Saints talk. We out here, baby.
Talk slow, move fast, look before you talk. Talk slow, move fast. Jump dumb and come harder than they hardly do. Eat rappers with crackers and vegetable soup. Apples and bananas don't make cranberry juice. Smell like somebody from Texas, right? Your tongue with shit on their boots. Want me to take it a joke? Do that too. You ain't gonna make it solo. Get in the group. I was gone 6, still in the loop. A bunch of people out here ready to root. I'm about, go, Mr. Go, go, Mr. Go, go. Hold up, look, I'm 40, baby, go slow. My back.
If you like this podcast and wonder, who raised this cat George? And would that father of his have any good business sense? Well, the answer is yes. And you can listen to John Landry's podcast, Triple Win Workplace, on the same outlets as this one. That is another one of Andrew's podcasts. And again, that is Triple Win Workplace by John Landrum. Check it out.